Welcome to the DXB Today Weekly Roundup. I hope you had a great week. As always, I'm here to bring you the latest updates and inspiring stories from across the city that we featured on the show this past week. To begin with, I know a lot of you are working from home, so Amy showed us places around Dubai to reconnect with the outdoors.
So here are Dubai's top 3 places to reconnect with your surroundings. First of all, the Garden Project, an initiative by Gym Nation and the Solutions Group. Move, meet and switch off with a weekly 5-kilometer run club for all levels. And a live DJ keeps the energy high with a post-run pizza, turning it into a social reset. Sounds delicious. Next up, we have 5-iron golf at Mina Seyahi. Trade screen time for swing time. Enjoy unlimited free mini golf on a laid-back outdoor terrace. It's a low-pressure way to unwind and reconnect with the people around you. Next up, we have Gaff Tree Trail at Mushrif Park. Now, this is a beautiful 10-kilometer trail of gorgeous gaff trees where you can explore nature at its best, escaping the city's buzz and a chance to reconnect with the wonderful nature around us.
In the studio, we had Mohammed Kazim, cultural consultant and co-founder of Tamashee, which helps people rediscover the UAE.
Great to have you and all of your experience. Anyone that follows you know that, you really thrive in outdoor spaces. You post regularly when you're in these very tranquil spots of nature. Do we, as urbanites here and as city dwellers, take for granted just how much the Emirates of Dubai has to offer it when it comes to nature?
Definitely, I think it's a natural thing. First of all, thanks for having me. And honestly, I think naturally what happens in the city environment is that we get sucked into our routine, which is the office space, which is at home. And even when you're driving, you just want to get from the home to the office to home. So you kind of disconnect yourself from the broader experience of being part of nature. But our region, and Dubai specifically, given its geographical location, is so rooted in its landscape. And even something as little as the old name for Dubai is Al-Wasl. And Wasl means the connecting point, and that connecting point is the connecting point between the mountains, the sea, the oases, the desert, and all comes together in what we know as Dubai today. So yeah, we are disconnected.
So based on your Instagram, I would say you don't want us to just visit places, you really want us to experience them. And what do you mean by that?
I definitely agree. I think visiting a place requires experiencing it. And experiencing it means feeling all the elements that led to it being what it is today. Even if it's just understanding why I shake hands with my right hand, why I give you coffee with my right hand. There's a thing to it that is rooted in the environment. And so that's the part I like to focus on and let people experience.
And that's the context that you guys give.
We try.
I want to ask you a little bit more about reconnecting with nature, because a lot of us think that reconnecting with nature typically means driving off far away somewhere or getting on an airplane. But from your experience, what does it look like within the UAE?
Of course. I mean, look, there's so many ways to do this. I personally love culture. So I like to see the impact of the environment on culture. And that means, even if it means just taking a hike in Hatta, which is close by, or even just going to, the Flamingo Reserve, that's the wildlife reserve that's in Ras Al Khor, which is like a 10-minute drive from, downtown Dubai. So it could be anything like that, but then that would give you context to everything else. The Arabian Peninsula in general is very resource scarce. So water was a very important element of everything. And wherever there was water, and drinkable water, culture was formed. And so you can imagine the possibilities in a place like Dubai.
Let's talk about the mountains, if we can. You mentioned there, what was mentioned earlier, Hatta, heading up into the mountains of Hatta, the hiking trails there. Equally, you don't have to travel that far up into the northern Emirates to experience there, or of course down into Abu Dhabi as well. I love this point you talk about, truly experiencing nature, because it's one thing going to the top of a mountain trail, taking a selfie and then posting it. How does it change people's perspective and a mood being in nature and completely immersing yourself in it?
Definitely. I mean, I was in Hatta recently giving a talk at the Jebel Ali Fort Hotel, or the Hatta Fort Hotel. And I was asked this question, that why is it important to understand where we're living in? And in Hatta there's something called a Sharia, which is like a water distribution system out of the springs that exist there. So each part of Hatta would get water at certain parts of the day, which created a culture of sharing. Imagine you're in a resource scarce environment, yet you have a culture of sharing. And that explains to you a lot about our culture today in the UAE. The diversity, the ability to share resources, the ability to actually sit there and understand. So understanding that little detail suddenly gives you context to everything else. So you're visiting a water distribution system. It looks like a well, with channels coming out of there. And then you see that there's date palms, there's etc., and there's farming. But all this created the culture we have today. So that's how the link happens. And you appreciate it more. And the selfie is very important. It's a social incentive to do it.
Next up, we had Chef Kelvin Cheung, who explained how we can all support homegrown.
Chef, always good to catch up with you. Really appreciate it. You've created a movement, no less. You and a number of like-minded individuals, hashtag support homegrown, started out as a couple of like-minded individuals putting together a WhatsApp group, as you do, and now look what you've created. Take us back to why you started it up in the first place.
It was something that we wanted to give back to one of our dearest friends, Boka Omar. He's a legend in the industry, legend in Dubai. And we wanted to give him a very special night. So I wanted to contact all the chefs, restaurateurs, everyone who just truly had love for him and what he's accomplished for us. And it was just a surprise. I sat down with him for a quick catch up, and I secretly just messaged 10 minutes later, and we just rushed the restaurant, filled the room of just people who just love him. And my key rule was that we were there to support. We were there for him and his restaurant to give the team just that boost and love and spirit. Nothing was hosted, nothing was comped. We were there to spend and just really, really take care of him and his team. And there was just this moment where you looked across the room, and after weeks of this harsh, cold reality that we've all been going through, it was a bit of warm fuzziness, something that we all needed. And that's when it clicked, and I was just like, this is something that is going to be so important, not only for my industry, but for our community, for Dubai, that we had to keep this going.
I think we were just discussing this at the top of the show that, nobody can grow in isolation. So I want to ask you a little bit more about the campaign Support Homegrown, because I'm sure that from the outside it may look just like a campaign, but for you it must be very, very personal. And besides, of course, the community spirit and the warmth that you said a little bit earlier, what has the general experience been?
Before coming to Dubai, I went through probably one of the toughest times in my life where I lost everything. And when I got the offer of coming here, I knew immediately that this was the place that I wanted to be. I knew that Dubai presented the best of opportunities, not only for business, but for work, for life, for my family, for everything together. And everything that Junes has been blessed with till date is only because of the community, because of the support, because of people in the industry, other restaurant owners, other chefs who have truly been our champion, our ambassadors, who are shouting to tell people there's a new kid on the block, please go check it out, and try it. And for me, it was an opportunity that we could give back to everyone who's been there for us.
Do you ever feel that it is a bit of a competitive environment though? Because obviously you guys are supporting here. And sorry, I know you're trying to say the opposite, but I do feel like specifically in dining in Dubai, it is so competitive sometimes. But you're all coming together. What changed? What was that? Was there a big shift, a specific moment where you noticed the entire community, not just a few of your friends, a few of your colleagues?
Every industry is competitive, but ours, especially in Dubai, which is, I would say, top of the world in the F&B scene. There's always been that push for competitive, who's better, who's this. But if we stick together, the beautiful part of Dubai is that there's room for everyone, and we only get better because of each other. And that's when we could see that by doing things like this, we can remind each other why we love cooking, why we love doing this, why we love the hospitality industry in the first place. And it's just the perfect thing to keep us going.
Oh, I love it.
Competition equals community, or competitions become community to a certain degree. Because I want to ask you about sort of what's happening out there on the dining scene. You mentioned you put this group together, you're going to go and visit a number of different homegrown, so show your support and your love there. From what you're seeing and from, given your expertise in the business, what's changed when it comes to dining trends at the moment?
So because of the fear and the anxiety some people deal with, the stresses, our industry is kind of one of the key things that people go towards in times of stress. You stress eat because it's nostalgia, it brings you comfort. What you're seeing is people's bandwidths are a little bit shorter. They don't want to sit for an extended period of time. But also going back to the community is that the client, the market, they feel that, they know that. If you're there fighting, if you're there pushing for your team, for your restaurant, for your business, and giving back something that's value, something that's still the high quality, of course, that Dubai offers, that's when the community will come and show up for you as well.
If you are a food company and looking for some space, here are 3 community kitchens that are helping other eateries.
Here are your top 3 community kitchens that you ought to know about. There's Rowley's Steak and Frites with the Little Fox. They're more than just a meal. These Dubai favorites are now stepping up in a time of need, offering free, high-quality dining to travelers and families stranded in the city due to recent regional flight disruptions. All you gotta do is present a boarding pass or proof of travel cancellation at Rowley's DIFC or the Little Fox at Al Sirkal Avenue and Dubai Festival City. The next one is Petite Gourmet. Hospitality relief boxes is what they have that they call caring for the caretakers. This boutique kitchen is delivering free, healthy meals to service industry workers and families facing financial hardship or unpaid leave. Just reach out to them via Instagram, look for Petite Gourmet Dubai to request a box or to nominate a family in need. The last one on this list is Cinema Keel's Pay What You Can. It's a community table, a sanctuary for the soul, so to speak. The Al Sirkal Gem has opened its doors for a pay what you can dining experience, offering a warm meal and a welcoming space for anyone in transit or someone who's seeking community space. Now, how exactly can you access this? Well, you just visit the box office at Al Sirkal Avenue. The offer is open to anyone seeking comfort, connection, or a hot meal during their time of transit.
Next, we had a chat with culture journalist and author Hafsa Lodi, who recently launched her fiction novel Turbulence at the Emirates Airline Festival of Literature.
Here we are, talking about a book called Turbulence during a fairly turbulent time at the moment as well. An apt choice. And I suppose let's talk about that, because that's something that you talk about in the book. And yet we're finding ourselves in an uncertain time for many. From a sort of creative point of view, from times back at the Emirates Airline Festival of Literature, when you were creating a number of people to get writing as well during very different times than we find ourselves in. Does that change the approach to writing, the times and the areas around you?
I think so. You have to be a lot more flexible. You might have one kind of image and picture in your head of what productivity looks like when being creative and when writing. It doesn't look like sitting at home while distance learning with your kids and trying to write above the noise. So you definitely have to be more flexible and adaptable to the times.
I'm interested to know about, obviously you've got your finger on the pulse with regards to, I guess, the creative community, right? Besides writing, what else are you seeing within this community at the moment? How are they turning to?
There's so much. The community is really coming together to support and uplift each other. Whether it's artists, writers, musicians, a lot of homegrown businesses are being kind of given spaces through restaurants and cafes and coffee shops to host different workshops and discussions, and it's really nice to see everybody come together and support one another.
And as you mentioned, it's really nice to see all of this variety and artistry and creativity in the city. But do you notice if the different forms of creative outlets, does it connect to, say, different forms of expressing emotions?
Definitely. I think for me, writing is like my chosen outlet, but for everybody has their own favorite medium to express themselves, whether it's art or poetry or, and I think the multitude of different classes and workshops going around right now really help you find your space and find how to not only express yourself, but process what's happening. And I think there's a really kind of healing and therapeutic element to that as well.
I couldn't agree more. I think that the interesting thing about this whole move towards community is that the arts and the creative community have been doing it forever. You know, that's part and parcel of the community as a whole. I'm just wondering whether there's any examples out there. As you say, writing is your medium, but be it performance, be it walking, be it art or otherwise. Have you seen any examples out there that really is sort of expressing what people are thinking and feeling at the moment?
Yeah, I think there's this desire to kind of sprinkle some joy into our lives. And there's this trend on TikTok and Instagram, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's bedazzling items, bedazzling things. And there was this workshop at Tanya's Tea House a few weeks ago. Tanya's also my sister. But you basically could bring anything, any item, and there were just jewels all over the table, and you would just bedazzle your item, whether it was a phone charger or a clip. And it's just, everyone was so into it. Some people came to it for the first time. This basically you just need a glue, wax, and you're just, anything. You can bedazzle these roses, you can bedazzle your blazer, your socks. And everyone was so into it. It was really nice to see everyone come out with some new item that was just sparking joy.
It's never too late to reinvent yourself or your business. And we looked at how 3 venues did just that very successfully.
Top 3 must-visit venues that have pivoted from their original concepts. The first is The Link and Syro at 1 Zarbil, a record-breaking architectural marvel that has defined hotel dining into a vertical urban sanctuary, suspended 100 meters in the air. Beyond Michelin-starred menus, discover a wellness-driven pivot at Syro, where biohacking and cryogenic recovery replace a traditional spa experience. A futuristic destination combining high-performance living with the world's longest panoramic views. J1 Beach at La Mer South, a complete transformation of the former La Mer South into a refined Riviera-style beachfront destination. What was once a colourful, casual strip is now home to elevated dining concepts like Gigi Regolato and Bauli, delivering a seamless day-to-night Mediterranean lifestyle, a go-to for sunset socializing and premium seaside experiences. Last but not least is Middle Child at Al Sarkal Avenue, an evolution from a simple cafe into Dubai's ultimate intellectual living room. Set within Al Qusa's industrial landscape, it offers a curated space for creatives, readers, and thinkers. With vinyls, comfort food, and meaningful conversations at its core, it represents a shift towards slow living and an understated quiet luxury.
Those success stories show what's possible. But what does adapting actually look like for businesses on the ground right now? We asked co-CEO and co-founder of Loon, Hilal Tariq Luta.
So we're a data company that mainly works with banks and financial institutions to help them make sense of their transaction data and build value-added use cases on top of it. It sounds a little bit complicated, but it does touch each and everyone's life. To make it very personal, have you ever swiped your card somewhere and then looked at your bank statement in a while and just sat there thinking about what is this transaction?
Yeah.
Who made this
All
transaction?
too often, yes.
So this is what we solve for at the start, and then we build value-added use cases for banks on top of it. And alhamdulillah, we started in 2020, and we're in the midst of COVID, and we've been growing ever since.
Great pivot, great pivot.
Hilal, I want to bring you into that conversation we started earlier on. We were talking about pivoting and adapting through all the changes that's happening. But how would you differentiate the two? What's the difference between a brand or a company just acting quickly versus an actual pivot?
So a pivot is the transformation of your business model. It's when you realize that there's something that's not clicking and that requires sit down and rethink of the fundamentals of what you're doing and then changing it. That's at the core of a major pivot. But you can have smaller levels of pivots in terms of changing a product or a feature and so on and so forth. And it's a real part of all businesses. It's just part of how to do business.
And what are you seeing on the ground, right now in terms of businesses adapting?
So, I think with every challenge we have to, or people tend to either react quickly or not do anything, or really sit down and calmly try to figure out what do they need to do to continuously either thrive or survive or grow. So I think now in the UAE we have been, we have gone through COVID, which was a much worse situation in the past where everything stopped. And we have learned a lot from that. And we're also very lucky to be in this ecosystem that is very resilient, knows how to evolve and develop and overcome these challenges.
What's your advice to businesses, to leaders out there at the moment? We know that with uncertainty comes a bit of pressure in terms of when to make decisions as well, because you've got to sum up the situation. Is this a short-term blip? Is this a short-term move, or is this something a little bit longer? When do you make the right decision? What's the sort of advice on that to leaders?
So one of the things that people don't realize that are not in the business field is that uncertainty is actually a part of our everyday business. It's a nature of being that we live on a day-to-day experience that we experience. So given that, we are already kind of attentive to the situation. There is uncertainty even in normal business or normal days. However, when things seem from the outside to be rocking the boat, there are, one of the most important things is to stay calm. That's the first thing. And to, really check the fundamentals of the business and rely on the information that you're getting. Is there something seriously that's going to affect the fundamentals of my business, and you need to make that assessment. So, and this differs by sector. So if F&B will be different from technology, are my clients getting affected? So it really depends on the sector, but it requires calm and an objective review of your current business fundamentals.
Be sure to tune in next week as we continue to bring you community highlights and cultural stories that showcase the heart of Dubai. I'm Niki Samnani, and that was your DXB Today Weekly Roundup. See you next week.